Very pleased to say that we're joined once again on the programme by the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid. Mr Javid, great to see you this morning. And of course, there is plenty to talk about in terms of parties, but let's start on your briefing with that, the changes to the public health strategy. Clearly, there is an awful lot of concern in government about the spread of Omicron right now. Why are we so concerned?
Well, since we first of this new variant, our strategy has been to buy time to assess it and also to build our protective defences. In recent days, we've started learning more about the variant. And one of those things we've learned is that it spreads very, very quickly. It spreads faster than any other COVID variant we've seen so far. It's doubling time. That's the number of days it takes, the number of infections take to double in the community. We estimate is between 2.5 to 3 days, which would mean at that rate, by the end of this month, we could hit about 1 million infections in the community throughout the UK. And we've always been clear that should the data change, and should it move in the wrong direction and it looked like that the NHS might come under unsustainable pressure, remember what that would mean. We wouldn't be able to get emergency care, not just for COVID, for a car accident or anything like that. We would act and implement Plan B. Now, I don't enjoy doing that. No one does. It's a very difficult thing for many people, asking them to work from home or wearing face masks and things. It's a real impact on our liberties. But I hope that most people will understand that by taking some decisive action now, we can potentially avoid action later. And then just on that, our vaccines and our antivirals also remain a very important part of our defences.
The key word, I suspect, in all of that is potentially. We do not yet know whether or not the boosters plus Plan B will, in and of themselves, be enough to halt the spread of Omicron. If they're not, what next?
Look, we don't have all the answers on Omicron yet. We've been very clear about this, not just us, throughout the world. Many countries are still trying to learn more. But what we do know is by implementing Plan B, so the rules around working from home, the face mask rules, the rule around the COVID passport, that will mean that we can slow the incursion of this, slow the spread of this, and it buys us time to build our defences. And the booster is key because although it's possible, and again, it's a possibility that the efficacy of vaccines may be impacted by Omicron, and there's some data to suggest that, it is still the case that by boosting, you're going to get a lot more protection than otherwise. We're doing incredibly well as a country with boosters, over 20 million.
All accepted, but it is the case, isn't it, that over the Christmas period, there will be increased mixing, unless, of course, there is a change to the plans for Christmas. That is, in and of itself, likely to lead to increased spread. Is it the case that, come January, we could be looking at even more significant measures being brought in?
No, I hope not. I mean, I think the action we've taken now is very decisive. I think it's going to make a big difference. And as I say, it's not something that anyone would do lightly. It has a real impact on people. It will be difficult for many people. But I think that, and I hope most people would understand, it's better to take this action now than to see the rate of spread increase.
Is the government considering mandatory vaccination? I mean, the Prime Minister did appear to hint at that when he suggested a national conversation about mandatory vaccination. What's the truth of that?
No, I've got no interest in mandatory vaccination, apart from the high-risk settings in the NHS and social care, which we've already set out that we will legislate for. Other than that, if you're talking about universal mandatory vaccination, I think ethically it's wrong, but also at a very practical level, it just wouldn't work. Getting vaccinated has to be a positive decision.
Feels like we can park that one then, but just in terms of the hospitality sector, slightly away from your brief, but will we see additional support for hospitality because they are already starting to lose money as a result of these Plan B changes?
Well, the measures we've taken under the Plan B, although they have an impact, they're designed to have a minimal impact. So whether it's wearing face masks, exempting hospitality from certain of the measures on the COVID pass.
This sounds like a no for more financial support for
we'll keep that under review, but the measures are designed to have this minimal impact.
Let us discuss the events of the past couple of days. We were expecting to see you sitting in that chair yesterday morning. Kay Burley was very, very upset that you didn't appear. Why wasn't there a government minister on the media rounds yesterday?
Well, I didn't appear because I saw that video, the video you just played again. It upset me. It upset a lot of people, I think, across the country. It upset the Prime Minister.
Did you refuse to come on yesterday?
No, it wasn't about I spoke to my colleagues in Number 10 and I said, look, we actually agreed that it's best to have some time to respond to the video in the way that the Prime Minister has now, by ordering an investigation by the Cabinet Secretary. And so I think the idea was just to give them space to react. But I'm pleased the Prime Minister has asked for an investigation. And I can see also why so many people would have been upset by that video.
Totally, but will you now be the First Minister to accept, on a balance of probabilities, that an event probably did take place in December on that date and that rules were probably broken?
Look, the truth is, I don't know. I have received assurances, like the Prime Minister has, that all rules were followed throughout the pandemic at all times.
Who is providing those reassurances? Because we've heard this from government ministers sitting where you are all this week. We've heard it countless times from the Prime Minister. I have been told, I have been reassured. Who is saying that?
Well, I'm not going to get into names, but senior people have assured me that rules have been followed. But I also think the Prime Minister...
Did no one think to check this?
The Prime Minister, I think, has acted completely correctly yesterday to order an investigation and to find out what may or may not have happened, and to have that investigation done by the Cabinet Secretary, who's free to look wherever he wishes, speak to whoever he wants, look at any potential event that may or may not have happened.
But we saw the Prime Minister yesterday at PMQs accusing Keir Starmer of playing politics and all of this. The Prime Minister, at any point over the last 7 days, could have opened up the door to his office, popped outside, asked people what went on that date and discovered for themselves. The reason he hasn't done so, and you and I both know this to be the case, is that it's politically expedient for the Prime Minister to not know what went on in Number 10. If that's not playing politics with the situation, what is?
No, I don't accept that. And the reason is because what we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday is that he's asked for an investigation by the Cabinet Secretary. The Cabinet Secretary has a lot of authority, and that he can speak to whoever he wishes and find out what really happened. And I think the best way to look into this is to get the Cabinet Secretary to use all his authority to find out what really happened.
But presumably the Cabinet Secretary was one of those reassuring the Prime Minister that no rules had been broken. I mean, surely that would have been the first person he would have asked.
Well, I wasn't even in government at that time, so I don't know who may have given the PM that reassurance or not, but I think it is important that this investigation that's going on.
Well, because he's either been misled or someone has lied to him, because, as you noted, the video itself pretty clearly demonstrates two very senior figures in Downing Street, one of whom has now departed, conceding that a party took place, accepting the fact that rules were probably broken, and more than that, then going on to wargame a potential response. The video is prima facie evidence that a party took place. I'm just wondering why the Prime Minister has taken so long to reach that conclusion.
Well, I'm sure the Cabinet Secretary would take into account what's on that video, the people that were in that room at the time, but it's right the Cabinet Secretary is given the time to do that and get to the bottom of this.
But just in terms of that investigation by the Cabinet Secretary, what faith can any of us have that the Prime Minister will follow the results of that investigation? The last time there was an investigation by a member of the senior member of the civil service, the head of ethics for the civil service, into Priti Patel and bullying. The Prime Minister read it and then discarded it.
Well, the investigation is taking place. I don't want to preempt the outcome of it, but I know that Simon Case is a very professional, very serious person, very independent.
So too was the head of ethics for the civil service.
But let's see what comes out of the investigation.
There is a pattern of behaviour here. Why is the investigation only focusing on the party that took place in Downing Street on the 18th? Not the party that took place on the 13th of November in his flat, not the party that took place on November the 27th, at which the Prime Minister spoke, the party that took place at the Department for Education, the party that took place at CCHQ. Why is the investigation only focused on the one thing that the Prime Minister can guarantee he wasn't attending?
It's not. My understanding is that Simon Case and his team can look at any aspect of any potential event that may or may not have happened at Number 10, including, my understanding again, is that he will be looking into what happened at the Department for Education as well.
Why did Allegra Stratton resign?
Honestly, I don't know. And I do know Allegra. I think she's an outstanding spokesperson. She's done some fantastic work on the COP recently, at that conference. And I think just by listening to her statement yesterday, I think she felt bad about what had happened and the way things looked.
Well, she apologised for the joke. On which basis? Why is Ed Oldfield still in his position? He was there. He was joking. Why is Jacob Rees-Mogg still leader of the House? He was joking at an Institute for Fiscal Studies event that happened the past couple of days.
Look, I think that we should just let this investigation happen and get to the facts, and Simon Case is the person to do that.
Do you not understand, though, that the level of frustration that there is in this government at the moment? Because, on the one hand, we have been told for over a week now, that no party took place. Yesterday, Downing Street refused to repeat that denial. The only thing that has changed is that video has emerged which shows that a party took place and that rules were broken. That is the only thing that has changed. I mean, are you taking the public for fools in all of this? The reason, presumably, Allegra Stratton resigned is not because of the joke, but because the government has been caught in the cover-up.
I just said to you at the start of this, but you asked me why didn't I appear, why wasn't I sitting here yesterday? It's because I saw that video. I found it very upsetting to see what was on that video, the laughing, the sniggering and things. And I think most people did across the country, and that's the way I reacted. And now the Prime Minister has reacted by asking for an investigation. I'm pleased he's done that. But of course, I understand how people feel, what they might think and what they're seeing. And I do think we need to get to the bottom of it. And the way to do that is to have this investigation that the Cabinet Secretary is leading.
Do you, though, accept that there is a real problem in terms of trust in this government? The simple fact is that no one believes you. No one believes you when you say that there was no party in Number 10, not you specifically, but the government, that no rules were broken. Fewer than 1 in 10 believe Number 10's claim that no party took place in Downing Street. And this follows on from a number of other occasions over the past 12, 24 months where the government have said X is going to happen and then it doesn't, or promise Y and then it doesn't appear. I mean, the list of occasions on which this government has performed a U-turn: free school meals, the reopening of primary schools, mandatory face coverings in shops, face masks in schools, A-levels, second lockdown, furlough extension, cancelling of Christmas, the Northern Ireland Protocol, vaccine passports. You've performed a U-turn on all of this. Isn't it objectively reasonable for people now to distrust everything that this government says?
Honestly, I think it's unfair to really conflate all of that. I understand the anger about the video, as I've shared with you my own anger and concern about that. But the other issues that you mentioned, I mean, these are all important issues. But, for example, you just mentioned, COVID passports or face masks and things. It is right that we have a flexible response to the pandemic.
All of this has made your job more difficult, hasn't it?
When things have improved with the pandemic, as we saw, we made the right decisions to open up in the summer. We've been really fortunate as a country with the work the NHS has done around our vaccination effort, fantastic effort. We've got more people vaccinated than most other countries.
But all of this has made your job more
booster
difficult,
program.
hasn't it?
Well, I'm getting on with my job. And the important thing is right here and now, as far as I'm concerned, is that the pandemic is still there. We need to keep boosting and building our defences. We need to learn more about new variants, and we need to make the difficult decisions to help protect the country. And that's what I'm going to be focused on. And can I just finally say, if I may, that if any of you, if they get the call from the NHS to get vaccinated, particularly the booster, please turn up and roll up your sleeve and get protected.
Well, we saw the efforts that you went to with John Craig. I'm sure the public will be paying attention.
Yeah, he's well boosted.
Indeed. Health Secretary, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.